Hey guys, John here. Now, Christopher Nolan has earned a level of trust with film audiences that very few filmmakers in the history of cinema have ever achieved. When you look at his filmography from the Dark Knight trilogy to Inception, Interstellar, and his massive Academy Award-winning success with Oppenheimer, he has proven time and time again that he is a master of the craft. He is a director who demands excellence, handles complex narratives with precision, and carries a meticulous vision for every single frame of his films. And look at the cast that he has assembled for this upcoming film, The Odyssey. We're talking about an absolute powerhouse lineup of elite talent. Matt Damon, Tom Holland, Anne Hathaway. These are heavy-hitting performers who choose their projects very carefully and consistently deliver top-tier work. On paper, this project has every single ingredient required to be an absolute masterpiece. By all accounts, film fans should be universally thrilled, counting down the days until they get to see this vision come to life on the biggest screen possible. But unfortunately, that's not what's happening across the entire internet right now. Instead of celebrating what promises to be a massive cinematic achievement, a very loud, maybe small, but very angry corner of the online film community has decided to completely denounce the movie. They are writing it off, calling it garbage and declaring it dead on arrival. And the reason for this massive wave of preemptive hatred has absolutely nothing to do with the script, the cinematography, the directing, or the footage. As a matter of fact, they haven't even seen the film yet. It is entirely because Lupita Nyong'o, a brilliant black actress, has been cast in the role of Helen of Troy. Now, if you spend even 5 minutes looking at the comment sections or social media threads discussing The Odyssey, you will see an incredibly toxic wave of backlash. People are outright refusing to see the movie. They're accusing Nolan of going woke, claiming that the film is prioritizing a political agenda over historical accuracy, and writing off the entire project before a single frame of the movie has even been witnessed. It is a level of definitive judgment and outright hatred for a piece of art that nobody outside of the production has actually laid eyes on yet. Now, what makes this situation so incredibly frustrating is the glaring contradiction in what these detractors usually claim to want. Whenever discussions about casting comes up in film communities, the common refrain we hear from audiences is, "I don't care about anything else. I just want the best actor or actress for the job. I just want the best movie possible." It's something we should all want. If that statement were actually true, though, then the casting of Lupita Nyong'o should be met with universal praise. Lupita Nyong'o is objectively considered one of the finest, most elite actresses in the business today. She's an Academy Award winner. Her performances, 12 Years a Slave, Us, Black Panther, have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that she possesses an extraordinary emotional range, a commanding screen presence, and a deep dedication to her craft. If your goal as a film fan is truly to have the most talented performer in the role give us the best movie possible, Lupita Nyong'o checks every box. She's not the only choice, but she's a great choice. Yet, the very people who claim talent is all that matters are the ones leading the charge to tear this movie down. So let's take a second and look at the mathematical equation. Let's really break down the logic or complete lack of logic. Behind this preemptive condemnation, the people who are currently online declaring that The Odyssey is going to be a terrible movie have not seen a single frame of the film yet. They don't know how the story is being adapted. They don't know the context of the world Christopher Nolan is building. And most importantly, they have absolutely no idea what Lupita Nyong'o's performance is going to look like in the film. She could step into this role and deliver an absolute masterclass in acting. She could give a performance so haunting, so captivating, and so powerful that it becomes the definitive highlight of the entire film. It could be an undisputed award-worthy turn that elevates the entire cinematic experience. But the people writing off the movie right now don't know if she's going to be great or not, and the truth is they don't care. They have completely removed performance, talent, and the execution from the equation. They have made a very simple, incredibly narrow calculation in their minds. Lupita Nyong'o is black, therefore The Odyssey is a terrible movie. That is the entire equation for them. Her skin color is the beginning, middle, and end of their critique. By condemning the film before seeing how her talent serves the story, they are openly admitting that her performance does not matter to them. The only thing they are concerned with is the color of her skin, exposing the fact that this backlash isn't about artistic integrity at all. So let me take a second and address some of the objections some of these folks might raise. Of course, the people leading this backlash don't want to admit that their objections are rooted in prejudice, so they construct elaborate excuses to justify their anger. Let's address the two most common arguments they throw out at a project like this. The first defense mechanism is almost always the Black Panther argument. It's a standard internet talking point that people think is a massive checkmate. They'll say something like, "Oh yeah? Well, how would you like it if they cast a white actor to play Black Panther? You'd be furious. It's the exact same thing." Except it isn't the same thing at all. This argument completely, fundamentally misunderstands how narrative and character development work in storytelling. In fiction, 95% of characters do not have their core narratives, motivations, or personal identities directly tied to their specific ethnicity. A writer might describe a character's physical appearance a certain way in a book or a myth, but that description rarely serves an important load-bearing pillar of who that character is, what drives them, or how the plot itself functions. However, there are a few very distinct exceptions where a character's ethnicity is a core, inseparable part of their story, their motivations, and the entire narrative structure. Black Panther is the textbook example of this exception. Stan Lee himself was very clear about why he created the character. Black Panther's entire identity is completely linked to his being the king and protector of Wakanda, a fictional, uncolonized, black African nation hidden from the world. His race, his heritage, and his cultural background are the entire foundation of the narrative and his motivations. If you change Black Panther's ethnicity, the entire story of Wakanda, isolationism, completely collapses. Another clear example of this to me is Batman. Bruce Wayne isn't just a guy who happens to be white. Growing up with extreme generational white privilege and immense old money wealth in the specific societal structure of Gotham City is a defining, load-bearing element of his background. It shapes how the city views him, how he operates within high society, and the specific legacy of the Wayne family that he carries. His background is directly tied to the narrative and the reality of his character. But when you look at a mythological figure like Helen of Troy, her core narrative function is the face that launched 1,000 ships. Has nothing to do with her being white or black. Her story is about a woman of unparalleled, captivating beauty whose existence sparks a massive, epic conflict between nations. Her motivation and her place in the narrative are defined by her beauty, her tragedy, and her presence, not the specific geographic undertones of her skin pigmentation. Changing her race doesn't break the thematic or narrative integrity of the Odyssey the way changing T'Challa's race would completely break the story of Black Panther. The second objection we see is people saying, look, there's nothing wrong with just wanting characters to stay the same as they have traditionally been described. I just want visual accuracy to the source material. And you know what? I actually agree with the core of that statement. It is completely okay to have a personal preference. If you grew up reading classic mythology and visualizing Helen of Troy a specific way based on traditional descriptions, it's perfectly natural to have an ideal image in your mind of what that character should look like on screen. However, that argument completely loses all of its validity and integrity the second you claim that a deviation from your preference completely destroys the entire movie. We all have preferences when it comes to film adaptations. We might prefer a character to have a certain hair color, wear a specific costume, or speak with a certain accent. But when a director changes a costume design or adapts a character's style, we don't form angry online mobs and completely seek to destroy and boycott the film before we've ever seen a single frame of it. Except for when race is the preference. That's when the reaction shifts from a mild preference to an all-out culture war, which tells you exactly what the real issue is. Now let's take a second and talk about the inconsistency and the constantly moving goalposts. The sheer inconsistency of this outrage becomes incredibly obvious when you look at how these same crowds react to other massive changes made to beloved source materials. They constantly move the goalposts to fit their outrage. Take the upcoming Harry Potter HBO series, for example. I've talked about this before. The internet lit up with anger when it was announced that a black actor would be portraying Severus Snape, with people screaming that it was a betrayal of the books because they are changing the character. But where was that absolute burning rage when the original film adaptations cast Alan Rickman? And don't get me wrong, Alan Rickman's the man. He was absolutely magnificent as Snape, and we all love his performance. But factually speaking, Severus Snape is 31 years old in the book. Alan Rickman was in his mid-50s, literally decades older than he is in the book when he started playing the role. That is a massive fundamental deviation from the source material that completely shifts the timeline and dynamics of the character's generation. Yet, there was no widespread boycott, no accusations of an agenda, and no full-scale outrage over a 20-plus year age gap. Why do we object so violently to one specific type of physical difference from the source material, while we completely ignore another completely different physical description from the source material? Look at how history and the art treat the portrayal of Jesus, for example. For centuries, in countless massive Hollywood epics, the traditional paintings, Jesus has been portrayed by white European actors with blue eyes, which is historically and geographically impossible for a first-century Jewish man from the Middle East. Where is the massive online outrage demanding historical and source material accuracy here? It doesn't exist, because that specific change doesn't trigger their cultural anxieties. We even saw this years ago with the remake of Battlestar Galactica, my all-time favorite television show. When Ronald D. Moore announced the project, a massive wave of fans threw a tantrum because Starbuck was being changed from a man to a woman being portrayed by our beloved Katie Sackhoff. They claimed it ruined the integrity of the original show. But it's fascinating to note that those exact same outraged fans didn't say a single word about the fact that Colonel Ty, who was played by a black actor, Terry Carter, in the original series, was changed to a white actor, Michael Hogan, in the remake. And he was awesome in it, by the way. The silence on that change was deafening. The goalposts are constantly being moved. A change to a character is completely fine and ignored right up until it involves a person of color taking on a traditionally white role. Now look, when you strip away all the excuses, the fake concerns over historical accuracy, and the deeply flawed arguments, it brings us to a very simple conclusion. When the race, gender, or physical appearance of a fictional or mythological character is not absolutely vital to that character's core story, motivations, or narrative themes, we need to step back. We need to stop the preemptive outrage, let go of the rigid gatekeeping, and allow directors and filmmakers the creative freedom to cast whoever they believe is the best performer for the job. Christopher Nolan didn't cast Lupita Nyong'o to check a box or fulfill an internet agenda. He cast her because he is Christopher Nolan, and he believes she was the absolute best actress to bring his vision of this character to life. When the Odyssey finally does hit theaters, I might love it, or I might walk out of the theater completely disliking it. Christopher Nolan is a genius, but even geniuses make movies that don't land with everybody. I personally did not love Tenet all that much. But if I do or don't like the film, I can guarantee you right now that my opinion will be based on the script, the pacing, the directing, and the quality of the storytelling. It will have absolutely nothing to do with the color of Helen of Troy's skin. Let's stop judging movies based on an online agenda, wait until the lights go down in the theater, and judge the work on its actual merits. And listen, I want to end with this. This shouldn't be an us versus them or an us versus you sort of situation. We're all movie fans, all of us. You, me, all of us. We have far more in common than we don't. We all love thrilling action, great storytelling, being made to feel things only a great movie can make us feel. We all agree on that. So let's allow our directors to make the movies they want to make, go see them together, and then like them or not like them based on the experience we had watching it. Maybe we'll celebrate together. Maybe we'll bitch and cry about it together. Either way, let's celebrate or cry about it for the right reasons. That will do it for me for now, guys. Thanks for bearing with me. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.